In 1200 BCE, Greece had it pretty good. The Mycenaeans, the Bronze Age ancestors of the ancient Greeks, ran a sophisticated palace civilization. They had writing, they had trade networks, they had monumental architecture. They had a bureaucracy that tracked every jar of olive oil, every sheep, every sword. They were, by the standards of the ancient world, doing extremely well. And then, like everyone else in the Bronze Age, they collapsed. What followed was one of the strangest and most consequential periods in all of human history. 400 years of darkness. A period so poorly documented that we barely know what happened because the people living through it forgot how to write. Cities shrank to villages. Trade stopped. Art became simpler. Population crashed. And yet, out of this darkness came ancient Greece, the Greece of democracy, philosophy, the Olympics, Homer, the Parthenon, Socrates, and theater. Everything that would eventually shape the entire Western world germinated in this bleak, forgotten period. But here's what nobody tells you. The Greek Dark Ages didn't just destroy a civilization. They accidentally created a better one. And the way that happened is one of the strangest stories in all of history. This is the Greek Dark Ages. To understand how dark the Dark Ages were, you first need to understand what was lost. The Mycenaeans were the dominant civilization of Bronze Age Greece, flourishing from roughly 1600 to 1200 BCE. Their palace centers at Mycenae, Tiryns, Pylos, and elsewhere were sophisticated administrative hubs that controlled agriculture, manufacturing, and trade across a wide region. They had a writing system called Linear B, the earliest known form of written Greek, used primarily for palace record-keeping, sheep counts, ration lists, weapons inventories, land surveys. It wasn't poetry or philosophy, but it was literacy, and it meant information could be stored, transmitted, and acted upon across distances. Their warriors were equipped with some of the finest bronze armor in the ancient world. Their kings built massive citadels with walls so thick and heavy that later Greeks, unable to imagine humans building them, assumed they had been constructed by giants called cyclopes. We still call that style of construction Cyclopean masonry. They traded with Egypt, the Hittites, Cyprus, the Levant. Mycenaean pottery has been found across the eastern Mediterranean. They were plugged into the Bronze Age international system, that interconnected world of great powers we talked about in earlier episodes. And then the system collapsed. Around 1200 BCE, the Bronze Age world fell apart. Drought, famine, disrupted trade, the Sea Peoples, internal revolts. A cascade of catastrophes that nobody fully understands even today. The Mycenaean palace centers burned. Some were rebuilt briefly, then abandoned. By 1100 BCE, the palace civilization was gone, and with it went almost everything. The trade networks, the art styles, the administrative complexity, and Linear B. The writing simply stopped. Now here's the question that historians have been arguing about for over a century. Who actually destroyed Mycenaean Greece? Because the answer changes everything about what the Dark Ages actually were. The scale of what happened next is genuinely staggering. Archaeological evidence suggests that the population of Greece dropped by as much as 75% between 1200 and 1000 BCE. Not a gentle decline, a catastrophic crash. Entire regions that had supported dense agricultural settlements were essentially abandoned. The number of inhabited sites in Greece drops from around 320 in the Late Bronze Age to around 40 by 1050 BCE. That's not a recession. That's a near-extinction event for Greek civilization. The survivors clustered in small, isolated communities. Without trade networks, they had to be self-sufficient. Without palace administrators telling everyone what to grow and where to send it, agricultural production simplified dramatically. The sophisticated Bronze Age economy, specialized labor, surplus production, redistribution, collapsed back into subsistence farming. Burials from the period tell the story bluntly. Bronze Age graves were often elaborate. Weapons, jewelry, imported goods from far away. Dark Age graves are simple. A body in the ground, maybe a pot or two, made locally. The material world shrank almost overnight. And then there's the silence. No written records for roughly 400 years. We know almost nothing about what people thought, what they believed, what stories they told, what leaders they followed. The Greek Dark Ages are dark, partly because they were genuinely terrible, and partly because nobody who lived through them left us much to read. Ancient Greek tradition had an explanation for all of this: the Dorian Invasion. The story went like this. The descendants of Heracles, the mythical hero, had been driven out of the Peloponnese generations earlier and now returned to reclaim what was rightfully theirs, sweeping away the Mycenaean order in the process. A new people moving in, displacing the old order, bringing a cultural reset. For a long time, historians took this seriously. Then modern archaeology complicated everything. There's no clear archaeological signature of a massive invasion. No sudden appearance of a completely new material culture. No layers of destruction consistently attributable to newcomers. What there is: gradual change, population movement, regional variation, and a lot of uncertainty. What probably happened was messier than an invasion. The collapse of the palace system created a power vacuum. Groups that had been on the margins, including people speaking the Doric dialect of Greek, moved into territories that had been depopulated or destabilized. It was less a conquest and more a slow filling of empty space. The Dorians did eventually become the dominant cultural group in much of the Peloponnese. Their descendants would later be called Spartans. But the dramatic invasion story is probably more myth than history. Which brings us to the real mystery of the Dark Ages, and it's one that almost nobody asks. If Greece lost everything, writing, trade, population, complexity, how did it manage to produce, just 4 centuries later, the most intellectually explosive civilization in human history? What happened in those 400 years of silence that made ancient Greece possible? The answer starts with the most accidental technological revolution in history. The Bronze Age ran on bronze, an alloy of copper and tin that required a functioning international trade network to produce, because copper and tin deposits rarely occur in the same place. When the trade networks collapsed, bronze production collapsed with them. Suddenly, the most advanced societies in the Mediterranean couldn't reliably make their primary metal. Iron, on the other hand, was everywhere. Iron ore deposits are far more common than copper or tin. The technology to smelt iron had existed for some time, but hadn't been widely adopted because bronze was better and the trade networks made it accessible. When those networks disappeared, necessity took over. Greek craftsmen turned to iron. Early iron tools and weapons were actually inferior to good bronze ones. Iron is harder to work, and the early products were often brittle. But over time, as smiths developed better techniques, iron improved. And unlike bronze, it didn't require importing raw materials from across the Mediterranean. The accidental democratization of metalworking that followed was enormous. Bronze weapons and armor had been expensive, largely the preserve of palace elites. Iron, being more widely available, was cheaper. Over time, this meant more people could afford metal tools and weapons. The material basis of power was quietly shifting away from palace elites toward ordinary communities. The Dark Ages were planting seeds that nobody could see yet. But here's what makes the Greek Dark Ages truly remarkable. And this is the part of the story that most history books skip entirely. If the Dark Ages left almost no written records, they left something else. Something that would turn out to be more powerful than bronze, more durable than palace walls, and more important than anything the Mycenaeans ever built. They left stories. Somewhere in the Greek Dark Ages, probably around the 9th or 8th century BCE, a tradition of oral epic poetry was flourishing. Bards called aoidoi traveled between communities, performing long narrative poems from memory, preserving and transmitting stories of the heroic Bronze Age past. The greatest of these poems were eventually written down in the 8th century BCE as literacy slowly returned. We know them as the Iliad and the Odyssey, attributed to a poet named Homer. The Iliad tells the story of a few weeks during the Trojan War. The Odyssey follows the hero Odysseus on his 10-year journey home. Together, they are the foundational texts of Western literature, influencing everything from Virgil to Shakespeare to James Joyce. But here's the part that should stop you cold. Homer's poems are set in the Mycenaean Bronze Age, but they were composed and performed during the Dark Ages, 4 centuries after that world had died, which means the Iliad and the Odyssey are not historical records. They are the memory of a lost civilization, filtered through 400 years of darkness, shaped by people who had never seen a palace, or a linear B tablet, or a Mycenaean bronze helmet. Homer is a civilization talking to itself about what it used to be, trying to understand what was lost, trying to find meaning in catastrophe, and in doing so, creating something the Mycenaeans never had, a shared cultural identity that stretched across hundreds of isolated, struggling communities. Not a palace network, not a trade system, a story, sung around fires in villages across a depopulated landscape, stitching Greece back together one performance at a time. That story would eventually become the foundation of everything. Sometime around 900 BCE, slowly and unevenly, the darkness began to lift. Populations started recovering. New settlements appeared. Trade began to revive cautiously at first. The archaeological record shows pottery becoming more elaborate, a style called geometric, decorated with precise angular patterns that showed increasing skill and ambition. Contact with the wider Mediterranean world slowly resumed. Phoenician traders, who had never really stopped trading, brought goods and ideas back into Greek ports. Greeks began encountering the Phoenician alphabet. Around 800 BCE, the Greeks adapted it for their own language, adding vowels that Phoenician lacked. Literacy returned to Greece, and this time it spread far beyond palace scribes. Poets, philosophers, historians, playwrights, all of them would eventually pick up a pen. The Greek polis, the city-state, was also taking shape. Without palace centers organizing everything from the top down, communities had developed their own local institutions for governance and collective decision-making. These were hardening into the first city-states: Corinth, Argos, Athens, Sparta, small, fiercely independent, constantly competing with each other. The world that would produce democracy and philosophy was assembling itself from the wreckage of the Bronze Age. History loves a paradox, and the Greek Dark Ages are the greatest paradox of the ancient world. The collapse destroyed literacy, depopulated Greece, ended long-distance trade, and erased centuries of accumulated knowledge. By any measure, a catastrophe. And yet, it also destroyed the palace system. The top-down, centrally controlled, administratively complex Mycenaean world that left no room for independent thought, competitive city-states, or democratic experimentation. The Dark Ages wiped the slate. When Greek civilization rebuilt itself, it rebelled from the bottom up. Small communities, local institutions, no dominant central power telling everyone what to do. And out of that specific wreckage came something the world had never seen before. Not just democracy, not just philosophy, not just theater or history as a discipline, or the earliest forms of the scientific method. The Greeks invented the idea that ordinary human beings, not kings, not gods, not palace administrators, could reason their way to truth, that the universe was governed by laws that human minds could discover, that a citizen had rights worth defending, that a story could be more than propaganda for a ruler. Every one of those ideas traces back to the culture that the Dark Ages accidentally created. The Mycenaeans built impressive things, but they didn't produce Socrates. They didn't produce Sophocles. They didn't produce Herodotus, the world's first historian, who had the radical idea that you could investigate the past and write it down so others could learn from it. The people who did were the descendants of survivors who spent 400 years figuring out how to live without anyone telling them what to do. That's not a coincidence. That's the Dark Ages working in ways nobody planned and nobody could have predicted. By around 800 BCE, the Greek Dark Ages were ending. The population was recovering. Trade was reviving. Writing was returning. Homer's poems were being performed across the Greek world, binding hundreds of isolated communities into something that felt, for the first time, like a shared civilization. Greece was about to enter one of the most remarkable periods in human history. The Archaic period, roughly 800 to 500 BCE, would see city-states develop, colonies spread across the Mediterranean, and Greek culture begin producing the ideas that would echo for the next 2,500 years. Next time on Drawn from History, the rise of the Greek city-states, including a city-state that decided the best way to raise children was to take them from their parents at age 7 and turn them into professional warriors. Yes, it's finally time for Sparta. Until then, this has been Drawn from History. Thanks for watching.